Hi everybody, this is Clare here from Arts Care, Artist in Residence with the Northern Ireland Hospice. In part 3 of my video today, I'm going to show you how to finish off the mosaic panels that I started in video 1 and 2. I've been using ceramic tiles for this panel, which has the Northern Ireland Hospice logo on it, and I've just got here some tile adhesive that tile grout that I've mixed up. You kind of wanted a consistency where it's not too thick and not too thin, and obviously if you're using other materials you might need to look at what they are in terms of whether they even need grouted or not. But normally if you're making a mosaic with either tiles or glass mosaic pieces, you would normally seal the work afterwards with some tile grout. So what I do is I tend to start off by pouring a little bit into the center of the panel, and then I'm using a little squidgy, which is hard rubber. So if you didn't have one of these, you could maybe use a little bit of flexible plastic, something that you can find might have a little bit of bend. Maybe an old kitchen spatula actually might do the job, where you get a certain sort of squidge effect when you press the grout down into the tile area. So I'm just going to move my camera in a little bit more, set down a little bit, and I'll start to grout this area. So I'm applying a little bit of pressure, just enough to push the grout down in amongst the tiles. So it's quite a nice process, quite relaxing, quite therapeutic actually to do this. If you're a bit of a messy person like me, you'll enjoy it. Now, I'm not wearing gloves at the minute, and some of these tile grouts can annoy people's skin, so I would recommend, if you were trying this out, especially for the first time, to wear some kind of gloves. And they could be anything, they could be household rubber gloves, or if you can find any other sort of protective gloves, then that would be great. But be mindful, some of these products can cause a little bit of skin irritation. So I'm just sort of getting it on quite thickly. And for these panels, because they're small and I'm working on a tabletop, I put down some protective paper on my table, because grouting is a bit of a messy process. So, you know, if you are working in home or in a healthcare facility, do make sure that you be mindful of the area that you're working, because you don't want to create a mess for people to have to clear up after you. You will not win friends doing that. Just a little bit more up the top here. So now, once I've sort of got a good bit of grout down in amongst those tile cracks, what I do then is I start to apply a little bit more pressure with the angle of this rubber squidgy. And so what I'm trying to do now is scoop off all the excess grout that doesn't need to be there. So you want to try and do that without lifting it out of the tile crack. So you want the remainder to be in between the tiles, sealing them, whilst clearing the rest up. Now, if I had more time, I would also go around the sides of this panel, and I'll do that later after the video. But for a quick demonstration like this, I'm just going to show you the basics here. Like with everything, if you take a wee bit more time, you'll get a nicer finish. But you want to try and get a good bit of that off. because afterwards you're going to have to let it dry for a while, let it set. Just like that. Now, just getting all the excess off. Because if you don't do that and the tile grout sets on top of the tiles, you will have an absolute nightmare trying to clean it afterwards. So you want to just keep going and get as much of that off as you can. Get a little bit of elbow grease, a little bit of pressure, and you should. So the fact that you can see the white tiles coming through again and the purple and red hearts means we're almost there. Okay, so now what you're going to do with that then, once you have that completed, you're going to let that set. Now you can let that set for a few hours if it's a fast drying grout, or if you feel more comfortable you want to leave that overnight. And then what you'll have is, this side of the road. So this panel I did yesterday, and the grout has completely set in amongst the tiles. So what you do after that then, if you've given it a good squidge the day before, you should have minimal work to do now. But you'll see on the right hand side of this, so on the left hand side, that was cleaned a little bit this morning. Oh, I'm just going to wipe some fresh dirty grout all over it again. But on this side, this was what was left from yesterday. So I'm going to give that a clean now. You can sometimes use a little light abrasive with that, like almost like a scouring sponge. But if you don't need to use that, then just use a regular sponge. And I'm using a very old sponge, so it's probably going to disintegrate a little bit as I'm wiping. So you're just getting all that residue, tile grout residue off. But you can see already how that's cleaning up. And you probably have to do that a couple of times. Every time that dries out, you'll probably notice a little sort of chalky film that develops on the tiles. So you probably need to give it a couple of times. And if you can't get rid of that chalky residue, one thing I could recommend is a little bit of white vinegar, or the stuff that you get for cleaning windows. That's pretty good. You can give it a wee polish with that, and then another little wipe with some water, clean water after that, just to take the vinegar residue away also. But that usually does the trick to get that dusty finish off it. Okay, so there we go, part 3, and that's our completed mosaic panel. So once that's dried, I'm hoping to at some point in the next few months, once we're all back into work as normal, we'll get those up in the walls in the hospice, besides some other similar artworks that we've done using mosaics with patients. So I can't wait to get back in there and get these up on the wall. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the mosaic project, and sure, have a wee go yourself if you have any kind of materials available to you. Okie dokes, thank you.